In Ottawa's quiet corridors, a message has been crafted, one of clarity and resolve. Canada has responded to the American military intervention in Venezuela, not with outrage, but with a firm, principled stance. Prime Minister Trudeau's government, through careful statements and diplomatic moves, has made it clear. Canada does not support the Trump administration's unilateral action. This marks a break from decades of quiet acquiescence, signaling a new, assertive chapter in Canadian foreign policy. Canada's response is more than a reaction to Venezuela. It's a stand against expansionist rhetoric from Washington. Ottawa's message is layered, addressing the immediate crisis, but also defending the principles of international law and sovereignty. There are no threats, just a call for multilateralism and reliance on established norms. Canada emphasizes working with allies through the UN and NATO, seeking to de-escalate tensions while drawing a firm line. The relationship with the US is valued, but not at the cost of abandoning the rule-based international system. Canada stands for order, law, and sovereignty, its own and that of others. This stance is the result of deep deliberation and a recognition that shared values with the US can no longer be assumed. Canada's response is not defiance for its own sake, but prudent preparation for a new, uncertain geopolitical landscape. The government recognizes the economic and security ties that bind the two nations, but also the risks of unpredictable American policy. Canada's message principles are not negotiable, and it will assert them more forcefully than ever before. This is the first step in navigating a world where Canada must stand more independently. The era of quiet deference is over. A new Canadian resolve has emerged. President Trump's swift military action in Venezuela, justified as protecting American interests, shocked many. His rhetoric, speaking of hemispheric dominance, signaled a return to a hierarchy with the US at the top, rejecting the idea of equal partnership among nations. For Canada, this is more than a crisis in Venezuela. It's a direct challenge to the post-war international system built on sovereign equality. The Trump administration's willingness to bypass international institutions and act unilaterally sets a dangerous precedent. Canada and its allies were informed, not engaged. A transactional, America-first approach now dominates. This shift means power, not principle, is the new arbiter of disputes. For Ottawa, the Venezuelan intervention is a test case. If unchecked, what comes next? The world must now confront the reality that norms of non-intervention can be set aside at the whim of a single powerful nation. In Ottawa, the US action in Venezuela is seen as a turning point, not an isolated crisis. The belief in shared commitment to a rule-based order has been shaken. Canadian officials see the language of dominance as a serious indicator of future US intent. The concern: if these principles apply to Venezuela today, could they apply elsewhere tomorrow? Canada's security analysis now includes the risk of an unpredictable southern neighbor. The US move is viewed as a deliberate weakening of international institutions Canada helped build. Ottawa is forced to reassess its relationship, shifting from implicit trust to explicit caution and renewed focus on Canadian interests. The old playbook is gone. A new one is being written in real time. To grasp Canada's concern, look to history. The Monroe Doctrine once declared the Western Hemisphere America's sphere of influence. While Canada was never its target, the doctrine's claim to regional hegemony always sat uneasily with Canadian aspirations for sovereignty. The Canada-US relationship thrived on mutual respect and restraint, but Trump's rhetoric revives old fears of hierarchy over partnership. When American leaders speak of hemispheric dominance, Canadians must ask, does that claim extend to us? The new rhetoric is less nuanced, suggesting proximity means subordination to US interests. This challenges the foundational story of Canadian independence. Ottawa's response is deliberate, not overreaction, a recognition that sovereignty is never guaranteed. The echoes of the Monroe Doctrine are a present-day warning. The progress of the last century, mutual respect, shared institutions, rule of law, suddenly feels fragile. Canada is reminded that the assumptions of one generation can be challenged by the ambitions of the next. Canada's position is unique and uniquely vulnerable. The world's longest non-militarized border with the US has been a source of security, but now highlights strategic risk. Proximity, once comforting, now demands vigilance and independence. Deep economic integration creates both prosperity and asymmetrical vulnerability. The US can exert immense pressure. Canada's resources, water, oil, minerals, take on new significance in an era of resource competition and American nationalism. The rhetoric of America First raises questions about future US intentions toward Canadian assets. Canada's options are constrained. Its vulnerability is practical, not theoretical. The central dilemma: maintain a functional US relationship while guarding against potential overreach, a delicate balancing act. Canada's security posture is shifting, no longer assuming American restraint, but preparing for self-reliance. This isn't about militarizing the border, but reinforcing Canadian institutions and capabilities. The armed forces are refocusing on Arctic sovereignty and domestic security. Intelligence agencies are monitoring US developments as those of a distinct foreign power. Canada is investing in its own intelligence and analytical capabilities, reducing dependence on US sources. Alliances beyond the US, with Europe, the UK, Japan, are being strengthened to counterbalance American unilateralism. Acting with allies provides legitimacy and upholds international norms. The mindset has shifted. Canada may need to navigate crises without or even against US support. This is a quiet fortification of sovereignty, based on a clear-eyed assessment of a changing world. The new posture is prudent preparation, not alarm. In the Venezuelan crisis, some expected dramatic gestures from Ottawa. Instead, Canada chose steady, non-theatrical action, a strategic choice rooted in de-escalation and multilateralism. This calm approach contrasts with Washington's rhetoric, signaling to the world that there's an alternative to unilateral assertiveness. By avoiding a war of words, Canada maintains diplomatic flexibility and credibility as a mediator. A theatrical response would escalate tensions and isolate Canada. The Canadian way is quiet coalition building and making its case in key forums like the UN and NATO. This is a marathon, not a sprint, reflecting confidence, not fear. The government is thinking several moves ahead, focused on long-term strategy. Quiet resolve, not loud outrage, is Canada's strength. Canada is recalibrating its alliances and strategy in response to the Venezuela crisis. High-level consultations with allies in Europe aim to forge a united front for multilateralism and international law. Within NATO, Canada is emphasizing the alliance's values and the need to resist unilateral actions, even by its most powerful member. Economically, Canada is accelerating efforts to diversify trade, reducing reliance on the US market. New trade agreements with Asia and South America are being pursued with urgency. The goal: build resilience by connecting diplomatic, military, and economic strategies. By strengthening alliances and diversifying partnerships, Canada insulates itself from the whims of any single power. This is a long-term project, essential for safeguarding sovereignty in a turbulent world. The diplomatic front is where Canada's new posture is most visible. The past weeks have ended an era in Canada-US relations. The assumption of automatic trust is gone. Careful preparation and vigilance are now essential. The relationship remains, but its character has changed. Canada can no longer rely on US benevolence. Managing the relationship now requires the same realism Canada applies to other world powers. This new era demands explicit, robust sovereignty, investing in diplomatic, economic, and military tools to chart its own course. Canada must be ready to disagree with the US to defend its core interests. The quiet fortification of security and recalibration of alliances are the first steps in a generational shift. Canada's strength is its clarity of purpose, a world governed by rules, not force. The Venezuela crisis was the first test, met with quiet confidence. The message, a new era of Canadian vigilance, has begun, guided by principles secure in sovereignty.